Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm honored that you found your way here in a sharing space with me and my special guest today. I'm your host, Linda Joy, publisher of Aspire magazine and founder of Inspired Living University, a sacred learning curriculum and community for women. You can learn more at inspiredlivinguniversity.com. You know, I'm 57 years old, and like many of us at 50, 60, or even beyond, you may be yearning to live a more fulfilling life in every way, including your love life. Many of us get to a point in our lives where we feel we should have it all figured out. We tend to focus on what we want or think we want, and are always baffled when it feels like we were doing all the right things and still not getting the outcomes we desire. What's the missing piece, we ask? How can we find it? Well, we'll be talking about all that and more today with Ann Wade. Ann is a coach, teacher, author, cheerleader, and instigator. Though she formerly excelled at holding herself back, Ann now fearlessly explores life, love, forgiveness, and gratitude. Like dancing, it's about hearing the music and getting into the flow without stepping on too many toes. The key, Ann says, is asking good questions and listening for the answers. Ann's also the founder of the popular blog soulmatedance.com, all about living, loving, and thriving at 50, 60, and beyond. Welcome, Ann.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, you know, we've crossed paths quite often in the online world, and when I saw that tagline, right, living, loving, and thriving at 50, 60, and beyond, I said, I got to talk to this woman, right? Then I read your personal story about finding love, and maybe we can talk about that today. But I serve this global audience of women, Ann, and, you know, when I hear them, you know, in that age range going, oh, you know, who am I to do this? I'm 60 years old. And I'm like, hello, I'm 57. I'm close to you. Don't give up on life. Don't give up on passion. Don't give up. It's like they put a number. So can we talk about that today?
Well, I'm 64, and this month I get to put in my application for Medicare. So please don't give me any excuses about age.
Exactly.
Well, I firmly believe that, to borrow a phrase from elsewhere, we're not too old. It's never too late. That's just something we tell ourselves, or maybe we've been told we should tell ourselves that. But there are too many examples of women in particular, men too, who have gone out and done marvelous and even miraculous things in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, even hundreds. So my personal philosophy is if somebody can do it, anybody can do it if we get our mindset and our actions in sync with what it is that we say we want. And, you know, for me, it involved finding true love in my 50s. It involved trying retirement and discovering that I'm not suited to it. I've been self-employed since the 70s, really all of my adult life, and I miss it. I miss the mental activity, the challenge, the engagement. I miss all of those things. So I'm jumping back in, doing some of my things, my old things, in new ways, which anybody can do anytime. So
I love it. So I love that this has all been birthed through your own journey, because I noticed in 3 years of doing my show, so, you know, that's a lot of shows, a lot of the conversations with all these visionary leaders, authors, is that their own journey fuels the passion for what they do today, and they allowed themselves and their businesses to evolve based on that truth. So it sounds like that's also your story.
Very, very much so. You mentioned Soulmate Dance, the blog. It was an outgrowth of exactly what you're describing. So my husband, the man who's now my husband, we've been married almost 8 years now. We met casually, and I'll get to how we ended up actually dating in a moment. But the thing was, when we first started dating, we had strangers stopping us. I mean, literally, people coming up to us saying, "You two, what is this? What is this connection we're seeing here?" And we kind of looked at each other and went, "I don't know." But even people we knew were asking us, "How did you find each other? How did you know you were the one? And how? I mean, you're in your 50s. How did you not give up?" And for me, talking about this being part of your journey, soulmates is a subject I've been interested in since I was a child. And not just romantic mates. I'm talking about all the people that we encounter somewhere along the way. And, you know, they can be friends and lovers, of course, but they can also be enemies and frenemies and training wheel relationships. And probably my favorite is sandpaper people. And to me, they're those people who rub us wrong to ultimately bring out our patina, just like sandpaper on fine wood. And so when Steve and I started dating, I started writing about the subject of soulmates in order to explore it deeper. That's historically what I do. I write and research and develop maybe coaching protocols or training because it's something that interests me, because I need or want. So I started writing about soulmates and then started the blog to share what I was discovering. And it sparked a lot of conversations, and a lot of people seem to be approaching love and everything else they wanted in life, but love in particular as if it were a limited commodity, as if there might not be enough to go around. And they had truly backed themselves into this corner believing that it was hard to find love or that there were no good ones left to find. And I knew from my own experience that couldn't be true. And that sort of had me wondering, well, what did we do differently? And if I could identify what that was it something that would be helpful to other people? And so that's kind of how about this started.
And I love that it's not just about romantic love. It's like love, because I was on your site, and it's love, gratitude, joy. It's all of it. It's about embracing life at its fullest is what I felt from what I read.
Well, it absolutely is, because if we want to get down to the absolute basis of everything, at least I feel this way, that my personal belief is that we actually all share the same purpose in life. And what we tend to think of as finding our purpose is really just finding our individual ways of expressing and living that purpose, because I think our common purpose is really simple. It's to love and be loved. And love is what lies underneath everything. That's the foundation for everything.
It's so true, because even in my own personal journey, and then this is going to lead to a second question I'm curious about, but love, when I found self-love, because I had to do my own healing first, as I'm sure we're going to talk about today. I had to heal myself first before I could attract my ideal mate, which Dana and I, we've been together 25 years. He's my best friend. But I wasn't ready. So I had to heal myself first, which again is love, and love myself enough first to only accept that level of love. Mm-hmm. So did your journey mirror that too? Did you have to do a lot of inner self-love work?
Well, it was all about inner work. Now, I'm gonna share something that may be controversial. Okay, so
That's all right.
Actually, I agree with what you said about discovering self-love. But one of the things that I've discovered in this examination, if you will, this forensics about love and where it really fits in the bigger picture, is that even for those of us who aren't ready to say, excuse me, I love myself and I accept myself and I'm just going to do it, that sometimes we can learn that self-love through seeing it reflected to us by someone who sees something in ourselves that we aren't ready to yet. That there are times in our lives, relationships, and it may or may not end up being your spouse, for example, but there are times in our lives where we're going to meet people who believe in us, who see worthiness in us, who see something worth loving in us, and that it's through being hammered with that in some cases. I mean, how many times do you have to hear someone say, you are worthy, you are worthwhile, you are beautiful, you are talented, you are intelligent? How many times do we have to hear those things before we're willing to engage in learning to love ourselves? And that, embracing that as a possibility, a possible step in learning to love ourselves, has really opened up a lot of possibilities for women who, in my case, women who are clients, women who are friends, women who are just stuck in that, well, I'd give more love if I only were a better person, or I only were a nicer person, or I only were, fill in the blank. That, yes, there are many, many paths to learning the self-love that we need, and being open to receive those many paths is part of, a big part of that journey for a lot of people. And I like to say, all yellow brick roads lead to Oz. If you've seen The Wizard of Oz in the movie, they get to this crossroads, they're dancing in the crossroads, and they almost randomly pick one of them. And people say, oh, but if they hadn't picked one, maybe they wouldn't have gotten the flying monkeys. All right, maybe not. But what if they'd gotten the man-eating tigers or, some other obstacle?
Exactly. So I can relate to this because, and before we go to break, I'll close with this, and then we'll come back and finish. Mm-hmm. When I got into the relationship I'm in now, I wasn't ready, but there's something you said a moment ago. He mirrored to me what he saw in me. So everything that you just said about him, that person mirroring that you are worthy, you are loved, I got to experience that. That helped me grow in love, not just for myself, but also with him, but also love in general, the energy, the essence. Mm-hmm.
Because you wanted to turn around and share that.
Yes. So what you just shared really resonated with me. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, let's continue our sacred conversation. I'll be back in a moment with Ann Wade of SoulmateDance.com.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Inspiration for a woman's soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Hey, America, we need to have a little talk. We've got more food than we know what to do with in this country, yet 17 million kids in America are struggling with hunger. Makes no sense. Luckily, the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks has volunteers gathering excess food and getting it to hungry kids. They're kind of like food angels. Hey, become a food angel yourself by supporting Feeding America in your local food bank at feedingamerica.org. We can't do it without your help. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and with me today is Ann Wade. And right before the break, we're talking about how the blog Soulmate Dance started, how her journey unfolded. And I'm curious, what did you do differently, right, when you found love, as you said, in your 50s?
Mm-hmm. Well, it started with a game that I've played with myself for a very long time that actually has to do with finding lost objects. And, I guess it kind of goes like this. When I did live in the North, I was always losing my gloves. And the game would be, all right, if I were Ann's gloves, where would I be right now? And it was amazing how often I would just sit with that for a moment and go right to whatever strange place I had left my gloves. And so in general, it's putting yourself inside the mind or the space of this other thing, this other being, and to think and feel like that other. And, it's just sort of a pure burst of insight. I wondered how that question could be tweaked and applied to finding love, because I actually, in my case, I knew there was a love available for me in this lifetime because of a dream or maybe it was a vision at 8 years old. And at the point I was pondering this, I was in my early 50s. I had been married. I had 2 wonderful children from that marriage, and quite frankly, I had dated a lot since divorcing, and I could feel myself getting into that kind of jaded mindset. So what came out of this, how could I tweak that question, was changing it to, if I were Ann's love, what would I be looking for? And that's a very subtle change, but it's also very profound. My husband and I had met very casually a few months before, but within just a few weeks of asking that question and really abiding with that question, just being with that question, we went on our first date and we met for lunch, and then 9 or 10 hours later, they very gently asked us if we'd like to leave so they could close. And here's the thing. I knew what I wanted in a relationship, and I think it's really important to know exactly what you want and perhaps why you want it. But the secret here was becoming in tune with what this as yet unknown person would be looking for himself, and then becoming just extremely honest with myself about where I was a match for what he would be looking for, this unknown he, and where I wasn't a match, and then using that as a roadmap for my own personal growth choices and being willing to grow myself and give of myself to become a better match for what I desired. Basically, I was positioning myself for reciprocity, for giving and receiving, and that turned out to be what had been missing from me in my dating life, in my adult dating life. Even though I was open to love, to giving love and receiving love, I hadn't really connected with what that love might be looking for from me. And that was an eye-opener.
That was like, oh, boy.
You think?
Yeah, that's major. But I love the question. Can you share the question again when you rephrased it from the first to the second so our listeners can really tap in?
Sure. It's like if I were Anne's true love, what would I be looking for? And I had to really listen to what the answer was, because it couldn't be, think about this, it couldn't be what I thought this love should be looking for or what I wanted them to be looking for. I had to listen for what they were actually, he, was actually looking for. I had to suspend my own preconceived notions or judgments or whatever you want to call them, and be willing to hear that other voice and then listen to it. And that was a huge shift.
Well, what I love about it is it's like you're tapping into, I believe in law of attraction and all of that. Mm-hmm. It's like you're tapping into the energy and essence of the true love that you wish to attract. And also it's almost like the yearning is there, but you're actually feeling his desires and needs before he ever enters your life.
Well, think about it. You just used the word yearningness. And what I experienced in this was the yearningness was stressful. It was very stressful. And when I started asking this question and really just listening, it became very relaxing. It just became it's already in the pipeline, and I can just relax and just be here for it. And that was another huge shift from stress to perfect peace and relaxation.
It's almost like to allowing and receiving, right? It's allowing yourself to trust that it was already on its way.
That's exactly what it's like, because, I've been a business owner all of my adult life, setting goals, setting intentions, taking actions, making it happen. This was very much a part of my mindset. And as good as that is for some things, in this, that pushing, that striving was not helpful at all. And so being able to put myself in this position of just receiving and trusting and all of that, it was a little bit like stepping out on a high wire without a safety net, but in a good way.
Yeah, it was like all the feminine energies, right? Mm-hmm. Trust, allow, sit back. And when we're, because creators like us, business owners, we have to have that masculine pushing, striving side to get it done. But for myself, it wasn't until I came into balance between the feminine and masculine that my life unfolded. So I may be using different words than you would use to describe it, but is it accurate, like the energy, what it felt like in your body?
Very much so, because I completely agree that when we're in business that we have to have some of what's traditionally thought of as male energy to follow through and to make sure things happen. But we don't want either side to be out of balance. What we're looking for is that balance, that harmony within ourselves. And when it gets skewed either way, we ourselves are actually interfering with our own outcomes, the things that we desire most.
It's so true. And for many years in my business, and in life, I was too much the other way, and I really found out I was too much in the masculine pushing, striving, back in the 90s when I had my first business. And then I went, it's like all or nothing, Linda. Then I went too far the other way where, the universe will provide. And, I did that too. And my family would be like, what's happening? And then, it swung right down the center. And I'd say that was about 5-6 years ago. And business, life, everything, it's the balance. Neither is wrong, right? You need both for everything in life. So I'm so glad we talked about this in this segment, and we're going to head to another break. And when we come back, in my intro of you talked about giving, and on your site you talk a lot about giving and receiving and what it has to do with living a fulfilling life. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that topic. Okay. And we'll be back in a moment. I'm with Ann Wade. coach, teacher, author, cheerleader, and founder of SoulmateDance.com. And I promise we'll be back in a moment.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Are you tired of sitting on the sidelines of your life? Do you feel disconnected from your truth and inner joy? Are you ready to start marching to the sound of your own drum instead of living on autopilot? It's time to start consciously creating your life from a place of personal power and to accept the support you need to create and live your authentic life. Coach and international best-selling author Felicia Bauckham specializes in empowering women to march to their own drum and create their own unique path to happiness. Felicia has a gift for balancing grassroots pragmatism with the spiritual side of life. She inspires women to connect with their inner rebel so they can uncover the next chapter of their lives. Visit marchtoyourown.drum today to schedule your complimentary Heart's Desire Breakthrough session.
One of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment, a philanthropic organization. Their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hi everyone, this is Shay Parker, the host of Best of the Best, which airs live right here on IOM Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited to bring you expert guest hosts, spiritual discussions, free psychic readings, and so much more. I can promise that you will not want to miss this one-of-a-kind, fun, yet touching, down-to-earth show. Join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on OTR-FM. This is Shay Parker, and I can't wait to see you there.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hi, you're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and with me today is Ann Wade. So, Ann, what do giving and reciprocity have to do with living the fulfilling life? And I mean a fulfilling life in every area.
Well, I think the concept of giving and receiving is fundamental to the concept of love, and that both of them are just foundational. But think about it this way. It's very much human nature to focus on what we want. And that's true even for people who are natural givers. And it's vital. It's vital to be clear about our desires and our intentions. But if all we focus on is what we want, we end up breaking the natural cycle of giving and receiving. And just to continue talking about love for a moment, I was fortunate to actually be able to turn to client records and look for patterns within some of their dating experiences or love experiences. And there was a surprise to me, I should say, recurring pattern with women who were looking for a man who was slim and fit, and yet by their own admission, they were more sedentary. They didn't take great care of their health, and their argument was that they would do that when they met this man, that he would inspire them to take better care of themselves. And the harsh truth in that is that they were willing to take on a fixer-upper, but they were not willing to take on a fixer-upper, but they expected someone else. So the giving and receiving was unbalanced. It was out of harmony. It was unequal. We touched on that just before the break. And I think that we've got to find that harmony, that balance. And so I also touched on earlier is this idea that once you know what you want, you can either grow yourself to become a better match, or you can change what you're looking for to become a better match with who you are right now, if that's where you want to be. And I believe this applies to everything in life. So, for example, if you're looking for better health, what does your body want to give you better health? Well, it probably wants more healthy food, more rest, all the things that help it thrive that only you can give it. Same thing with money. If you want more money or the feeling of having more money, you've got to give your finances better stewardship habits. And quite frankly, it's not always about making more money. Sometimes it's just getting a better relationship with money. But in each of these cases, we ourselves have to be willing to give first. And this is one of the misconceptions about reciprocity. If you look it up, if you Google it, you'll find things like, I think Brian Tracy talks about using it as a persuasion technique. It almost sounds like a gimmick. The social science definition of reciprocity is doing something nice for somebody who has done something nice for you. And in each of these things, it's either reactive or manipulative. And that's really not what giving is about, and reciprocity and love for that matter. We have to be willing to give of ourselves and let it go without expectations of what the recipient is going to do with it, how they're going to show their appreciation to us. Just let it go. Let it be. Let the act of giving, let the act of love be complete for us. And so, if you want deeply satisfying love or better health or better finances, you give yourself the space and the grace to find that match, to become that match, to grow. And so through all of this, it kind of, for me, it got honed down to really just 4 simple questions. And I have been using those for everything for me.
So what are the 4 questions?
Okay. Well, the first one is, what do I really want? And yes, I do think it's important to be just crystal clear about what we want, not what we think we're supposed to want or what, TVs, movies, social media, they tell us we're supposed to want, or even, and this is a big one for a lot of people, even what family and friends want for you or think you're supposed to want. I mean, this is about getting in touch with your own deepest desires. So that's the first question. What do I really want? The second one we've also touched on. What does this relationship or goal want for me? And again, this is about going deep inside the heart and mind of this relationship or this goal, and allowing yourself to hear and feel what they genuinely want. And again, not what you think they should. But this is where you have to begin being just courageously honest. And then so that honesty continues with the third question. Am I a good match for this relationship or this goal that I desire? And at this point, for me, it went beyond being courageous. I had to be fearless. I mean, just absolutely fearless, because this was scary. This was scary because when I first started this, it felt like I might be admitting that, oh my gosh, I'm not who or what I thought I was, and that was scary. But until you're really willing to be this honest, you can try and try and try and fail and fail and fail, and the more that happens, the more likely you're to feel it and view it as some sort of confirmation, and the more likely you are to start blaming people and circumstances outside of yourself instead of looking inside for the answers. It becomes an excuse to look outside. And then the fourth one, and this for me was the most courageous and the most fearless of all, is what am I willing to change? And when it clicked for me, it's like, this is really so simple. There are only 2 options. Am I willing to grow myself to become a better match, or do I need to change my match, my desire to match who I am right now? And once I got to that point, it was such a, oh, okay, now I know what I need to do, or how to get there from here, and I never knew that before. So, for me, it was like angel singing and aha.
You're like, oh. I've had that experience.
Yeah.
So when you got to the point, number 4, of, what am I willing to change? Like to either grow to match or change the desire to even match. Mm-hmm. How did you know the answer? Did it just resonate, or you just did, it was over time, you just kept asking the question, then you got that answer?
I actually have to answer that 2 different ways. When I had the epiphany that was the key question, my response came pretty quickly, that I was willing to grow myself. However, when I realized that was the question, I realized I had been growing myself in that direction for ages and ages and ages, but didn't really know where I was going.
Ooh.
And so, yeah.
Great insight.
So, well, felt like it, and it also felt like all those times when I had felt like maybe I had stumbled or fallen or maybe not gotten something right, that really and truly they were all helpful, but because I wasn't clear about my willingness to change or where I was going or all of that they just didn't make sense at the moment, but now they did. And that was huge.
Oh, it's really huge, is having the clarity. Like you said, it's like driving along with no map in a way, right? I'm just going to drive, but I have no idea where the heck I'm going. So the clarity gives you direction once you ask that last question.
Exactly.
It's like anything in life, right? If we're not clear on what it is, like you said, whether it's a relationship, a goal, how can we course correct along the way if we're not even sure what it is or where it is we're going?
I don't think we can, because I think we end up just floundering. It's almost like ricocheting. I have this image of this. It's basically like a game of cosmic pinball, where if you remember the old pinball games where you pull the lever back and the ball gets released, and then you're flipping all these little levers trying to get to whatever the destination is, but it's so random and it's willy-nilly, and this lever pushes it that way and this lever pushes it that way, and I mean, technically you're going somewhere. I mean, you're moving, but you're not going necessarily where you want to go or need to go. It's just, you're just ricocheting all over the place.
I think we've all been there.
Oh, yes.
So what we're going to do, let's jump to break now, because I don't want to interrupt the flow when we come back. So you shared the core questions, but I'd love some ideas how we can use them. Is it journaling? How to actually put them into use in our life in a consistent way to help us get results. We'll be right back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations, and I'm with Ann Wade of SoulmateDance.com.
This is OTRFM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Experience a homecoming to your heart. In the foreword of Dr. Deborah Riebel's new book, Being Love, How Loving Yourself Creates Ripples of Transformation in Your Relationships and the World, Marcy Shimoff shares, the answer to our inner longing isn't finding love, it's being love. The practices that Dr. Deborah presents in Being Love are keys to opening your heart and receiving your divine birthright as a physical manifestation of love. Her techniques, developed over years of successful private practice with her clients and from her extensive training in multiple disciplines, are accessible, compassionate, and effective. Her message is powerful, and if you allow it, will change your whole life. Order your copy of Being Love today at beinglovebook.com and receive over 45 transformational gifts. Being Love is brought to you by Inspired Living Publishing.
It took a little getting used to. She has these weird games she likes to play, like this giant feather. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. It's almost like she thinks I enjoy it. But seeing how much fun she gets out of it, well, I guess it makes it all worth it. Humans.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Healing Light, on OMTimes Radio every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Healing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
This is OTR FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. So, Ann, right before the break, you shared the powerful 4 core questions that you've developed and used in your own life and with clients. And I'm just going to repeat them quickly. Number 1 was, what do I really want? 2, what does the relationship or goal want from me? Number 3, am I a good match for this relationship or goal? And number 4 was, what am I willing to change to either grow to match the relationship or goal or to change the desire to match? And those really resonated with me. So for our listeners, how could we begin to implement these in our life in a way that will help us like really create almost like a routine or ritual so that we grasp it?
Well, I mean, you mentioned journaling. That's one of my favorites. And I actually utilized that at the time and this is before, for me, it started even before I had identified what the 4 questions were. I was just focused on the one, what was this great love out there? What was he looking for from me? Because I didn't know who he was. It was like I knew him but didn't know who he was. So I would get up in the mornings and I would start journaling. And just it was a practice, and I mean that in the literal sense, practicing getting inside his head, practicing what he might be thinking, and then learning to feel in my body whether that was me talking out of my own wishful thinking or me listening to what was out there for me. So journaling was huge for me. That doesn't work for everybody. For some people, it's maybe you're one who takes a long walk and treats it like a walking meditation. You put a question out there and then just let your mind play with it while you're out in nature and you're out walking. Others are going to look for a coach or a mentor of some kind. They like a more iterative process where you can be talking with another person and bouncing things back and forth. Again, this is so important, and this is so much a part of this whole process, is realizing what works for you and then harnessing that. Just because journaling works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. In fact, for some people, that's such a burden, it gets in the way of hearing what they need to hear. But somebody who doesn't like to walk out in nature might be going, oh, my God, is it that time again? So I think that is essential. Where is your best meditative mode, listening mode, receptive mode? And part of my morning routine is when I first wake up, I don't get out of bed. I lie there for a little while and just listen. And sometimes I've dreamed something in the night and just literally say, okay, what was that about? Or I've got a goal in mind, whether with business or personal, and just sort of have a moment of listening for what that's about. So our routines, our practices are as individual as we are, and that's what we need to strive for. Try things on for size. See if this works for you. Learn to feel if you're feeling resistance as in fear, or wisdom as in this isn't your best way of doing this?
So it's really an internal listening and trusting and leaning in to find what works for us as individuals. Because like life, there is no cookie cutter answer, right? Yeah. It's just leaning in. But the questions themselves, like for me, I would turn to the journal because that's my tool, and I would just ask the question in my journal and then almost like see what comes, not try to write an answer. It's almost like I would wait for it to be given to me. And if that means I didn't write the answer that day, that's my way. But those questions really inspire like us in going deep. And I think I know that's where all the answers are.
Well, and it sounds like you and I might journal in a very similar way, because I have a tendency to ask a question and then just sit there. I do my journaling longhand.
Me too.
Okay. And I'll just sit there with my journal open, my pen in my hand, and often with my eyes closed and waiting for something to pop in my head. And then just taking it down without judgment, without anything. Just that was the thought that popped in, and then I record those. And then later, they can be the catalyst for more introspection or more listening. Sometimes they go deeper. Sometimes that's all they had to say. But it's a good way to get in that listening mode. You don't have to start writing immediately. You can just wait for something to drop.
And one of the other things I've noticed too is, say I'm in a reflective mode and I don't have my journal with me, but I wanted to focus on these questions. I believe that if we just ask the question, whatever it may be, with pure intent and desire to hear the answer from our own truth, that just by asking it and letting go sometimes, like those times I don't have my journal, it could be a day later, 2 days later, an hour later. Suddenly the answer just drops into my awareness.
Absolutely. And you know what else?
I love when that happens.
Oh, me too. Me too. That's another one of those angel singing kind of moments. But the other thing I've noticed is once I put that question in there, once I pose the question, then I might get a snippet of the answer from a movie I go see, or from a beach book, a novel that I'm reading, or from some snippet of conversation. It's not limited to my quiet time once I become receptive.
I call that signs and synchronicities, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've had books jump off the shelf at bookstores. One was about 18 years ago, and I'm smiling now because I kept getting signs on the whole trip, but I was in ego. It was probably 18 years ago. I was in ego trying to tell the divine universe, whatever your word is, exactly the type of sign I wanted. And it was like 4 days. Oh, yeah, that's where I was. It's like, and I want to see an angel cloud when I'm on the back of the motorcycle heading to North Carolina. So and I want to see that angel cloud. So the whole trip, I am focused on seeing that damn heart cloud. Instead of being in the moment, well, guess what happened, Ann? But again, I was focused on the darn cloud, heart-shaped cloud. So we walk out of a restaurant. There's a feather on the ground, and Dana's like, that's weird. So I pick it up, put it in my pocket. A very windy North Carolina day, we get to the hotel, which is on the beach, and he had a little stoop facing the beach. It is sandblasting us. We both have our sweatshirt hoods up, but there's a feather not being moved right in front of our door. Again, right over Linda's head, right? The signs. I go to the bookstore the next day, and a book falls off the shelf. And I wish I remember the author, but you can look it up. It said, if you see the same thing 3 times, you better listen. So I go, well, that's the strangest book to jump out at me. And I go to the register, and the woman says, where did you find that book? I said, on your bookshelf. She goes, you couldn't have found it on the bookshelf. We have a waiting list for that book. We haven't had it in stock in 2 months. I said, well, it just attacked me off the shelf. And so then I said, darn it, I got to buy this book now. She was in shock. Now it goes back to what we were saying. We have to be open to receiving and not just wait for what we want to frickin' hear, right? Because the divine's trying to bring us everything, but in its timing, not ours. Have you discovered that too? When we hold on too much into what we want, we stop trusting, allowing, and letting it flow?
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times I've done battle just like that in my own life. By the way, I always lose. I always lose those, by the way. But
I laugh and go ahead.
No, I said, but I'm glad to lose them. Maybe not in that moment where, my inner 2-year-old says, but I wanted this.
Exactly. I always, I'll be talking to clients, and I say, listen, I still have wrestling matches with my divine support team, and I've been on this path a long time, where I stomp my foot and go, but, and I imagine them out there saying, well, when are you going to listen? So I smile when I tell these stories because it brings me such joy that we're always supported, but we have to get out of our own way.
Absolutely, and I have this image of I think you just called it divine support team.
Yes.
I'm probably going to borrow that term from
That's
you.
fine. I use that, and I do my soul team, but it's usually divine support team is help yourself. We all have one.
I love it. Well, my little team, I have this image of them when I sort of dig my heels in, of them kind of rolling their eyes and saying, oh, there she goes again. All right, who wants a cup of coffee while we wait on her?
Oh, yeah, how long can she hold her breath this time? Oh, you and I, yeah, that's how I communicate. And I'm really raw and honest with my divine support team, and because I know that's how they want it, and it's actually how I have to be in process. And I just love the direction this conversation went, because it's just, we're always divinely supported. Your questions are going to help us all go deeper into our own truth so we can hear that wisdom that's all around us. And I want to invite everyone to be sure to swing by Anne's website at soulmatedance.com. There's so much there waiting for you, so be sure to visit. And Anne, I am so glad that you were able to join me today and share your journey, your wisdom, and these 4 core questions with me and my audience.
Well, thank you so much. I have loved being here. I have loved talking with you, and I would love it if these questions help someone else. I think anything we're given it in order to share, in order to give to someone else, and that keeps that cycle of giving and receiving going and the love going. So,
I so believe that too. I so believe that. So thank you again, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
And everyone, I invite you to join me every Tuesday at 2 p.m. on the OMTimes network. You can also catch all the sacred replays on all podcast platforms, including iTunes. Until next time, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness, my friends. Blessings.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.